Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and today I am joined by Stef are you in Amsterdam?
Amsterdam, grey,
Yeah.
cold, and rainy at the moment. Yeah.
Well, I could say I envy you, but I don't.
No,
So you
you
can stay
shouldn't.
in
You
Amsterdam.
shouldn't. Yeah,
So you are the managing director of the World Yacht Rally. Now, this is something new on the sailing scene.
it is. Yes. I realized in a conversation that was about a year ago. I had a conversation with a friend of a friend, and he is quite a successful businessman and late in his late 50s. And he said, I'm done with working. I've had enough of it. I'm going to sail around the world. And by the way, I don't have a boat and I don't know how to sail. Can you sort of help me? Considering my background, he thought maybe you know some things how to make that work. He said, actually, what's out there to help me realize this dream and to sail around the world? So I knew obviously of ARC and of the Oyster Rally, but apart from that, there was actually nothing available. So I dived into it, and when I realized it's only ARC and it's only Oyster, I thought, well, it's pretty interesting that in a market, whereas people, let's say over the past 10 years, value an experience over spending more money on a different car or a second house or whatever. Whereas I also realized that the dream of many sailors is to sail around the world. Either so it's somewhere in the back of the mind of a lot of sailors, I think. So I figured there might be actually room for an additional around the world rally, and that I combined with my past. I did several Volvo Ocean races in management positions. And this is where I started developing the idea that everything and the whole network we used within the Volvo Ocean Race around the world of both, let's say, the cities we went to, the areas we went to, as well as the suppliers we talked to, that actually that combination is a perfect fit to realize something new. And then I figured that, like I just said, that with people wanting to spend more money on experiences, there's also a trend that people want to spend more money on luxury, to be unburdened. Make it happen. I'll pay for it, and I'm fine with that. So all those ingredients combined made me think, and I started to develop this concept. Started to talk to Jack, one of the team members. Started to talk to Nick, and to Jordan, all my former colleagues, and we all came together and started to develop it until where we are at this moment. So that's how the World Yacht Rally sort of took shape.
Well, and you have an absolutely amazing team. I mean,
Thank you.
the resume of this team. We're talking about Nick Bice, Jordan Spencer, Jack Lloyd, all of them part of the Volvo Ocean Races, Olympics, America's Cup, the World Sailing Games. It
Yeah,
just goes on and on.
yeah,
Absolutely phenomenal.
yeah,
So there is the four of you that are teamed up together to
exactly.
create this experience.
Exactly. And then obviously when we start rolling it out, we will need quite a lot of more people, but we've got the network to do so. We've got the network to scale up quite quickly. And with Nick, Jack, and Jordan involved, we've got sort of basically everything covered. Everything on the water, everything commercially, everything on the service side of things. So that's how we sort of make it work at the moment. With the four of us at the moment, we can easily handle it. And when the time comes that we're off to operations, then we're going to scale up.
Well, and so you have to, it's for yachts 50 feet or 15 plus meters.
Exactly. 50 feet plus. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And it's 30 months or 2.5 years if you can't figure that one out real
yeah,
quick. But they
yeah.
don't necessarily have to be part of the race for that entire time, do they?
No, I realize that 30 months is a long time, but it's based on several parameters. First of all, we did a lot of research on what the feedback is of cruisers around the world. And many of them said that, let's say, there's a few out there that do 18 months, 20 months, 22 months. Many of them said that's actually pushing it, which I can imagine. Once you take your own yacht to the South Pacific, I can imagine that you want to take some time and stay there and explore it. It's not very likely that you'll be there back in 2 years again, because it's quite an enterprise to go around the world. And so we took all that feedback on timelines, what cruisers want, and we combined that with the current weather patterns. So that was quite a puzzle to make that work. Jack extensively had discussions with Ken Campbell, one of the great weather guys in the world. He's also connected to many races, for that matter. And we came up with this model in 30 months. So the 30 months is based on the feedback of the cruises, and that combined with how that works in certain areas around the world, we came up to this route. And like you mentioned, you're right. So I realized that 30 months is a long time for a lot of people, and especially if you still run a business, I could imagine that you need to step out for a few months, for a few weeks, or whatever your desire is. That's where we thought, okay, we need to look at this differently and add the service of that. Either we're able to get your ship to your yacht to the next destination. So let's say you're off in Auckland and you have to go back to Europe or whatever. We can take the boat and take it to Sydney or to Indonesia, wherever you want. We either put on crew or we ship it. And there's a third option of chartering it. Probably it's not your 50, 60 feet yacht that will be able to do that, but let's say anywhere 70, 80 plus with a crew on board is able to bring the boat into a charter pool, which is marketed by one of the big global yacht brokers in the world. And they will market actually the yacht to non-boat owners. So I think that's an interesting component of the rally that was one of my desires, to make the rally or a part of the rally available for non-yacht owners and do a leg, let's say, for instance, from Auckland to Sydney. It's an experience of a lifetime for many that are not involved in yachting or don't have a boat, and for the yacht owner, it's a perfect way to sort of commercialize or to leverage your costs on a trip like this, if you're open to charter it. If you think, well, I don't want people on my boat, that's fine as well. We'll take care of the boat and bring it to the next destination.
So realistically, with all of your experience, you have the benefit of seeing what others have done, of seeing what works and what doesn't work, and adding in those things that at this stage you think are necessary. So you've got the benefit of all that experience to create something that is truly award-winning, essentially.
Well, I hope so. And I think one of the main benefits is that everything we used to use in the professional racing industry, we now make available for the amateur sailors. So that means that we have a training and medical support, and the suppliers and the services at the service stops available that are exactly the same in the Volvo Ocean Race, or the former Volvo Ocean Race, as well as this rally. Obviously, it's a different model. We scaled it down a bit. But for instance, Nick was heading the boat yard. And the boat yard is a massive service center for the VO65s that went around the world, to keep them one design, but also to service the mast, the sails, and so on and so on. We scaled that down, obviously, massively to let's say 2 containers instead of a massive shed of 65 meters by 20 meters, what it used to be in all the stops around the world. But the services and the knowledge to do so are the same. And it makes sense to, I think, for many yachts, for that matter, to let's say, to bring the service center to the boat instead of the other way around, to have the boat sail to a service center. So that's what we include in our services of World Yacht Rally.
So let's talk money.
Money.
It is possible to go from bare bones all the way up to the most amazing experience that they possibly could ever imagine, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what would the lowest sort of, bare bones, you do your own provisioning, you take care of it, what would the bare bones be as far as cost-wise for these things?
Well, there's a basic package of what you pay for. It's it starts with 70,000 a year if you do the full round. So that's 30 months. I realize that's a lot of money, but we chose to have it in a premium segment where all these services apply. So we obviously got the routing and the weather. We've got the maintenance. So every time you step into or you come into a service station or service stopover, we'll bring on board a few guys who check your rig, who check your engines, who check your generators and your seals. We've got the medical support. We've got berthing for a few days at arrivals and a few days at departures. Obviously, a lot of parties. So the social component. We have administrative support for the licenses and the permits you need, but also for the Panama Channel. It's a lot of paperwork and a lot of things to take care for. We've got a maritime safety training involved. We want to have a direct line with the boat, so we've got an Iridium communication device, and probably for the really big yachts, it won't be that necessary as for the smaller yachts involved, but still we supply for that. We've got 24/7, just like in the race, risk assessment, so we constantly track on piracy and terrorism, and we supply for a specific route dedicated pilot. So that sort of indicates the route. So you get a pilot on board, a big book with details of the route. So those services are included. Again, I realize it's a serious amount of money, but with the experience we have on realizing such thing at that level, it will be needed as well. Additionally, you can choose to, and that makes it cheaper, you can choose to do parts of the rally. And for now, we have included either a start in Europe, and you can finish at the other side in New Zealand or Australia. Or you can tag on for the North American market. You can tag along at the Caribbean and finish and start or finish in Australia or New Zealand. And the other way around, it's exactly the same. You can also start in New Zealand or Australia and do the trip with us to Europe, back to Europe.
So, but what if somebody wants to go the other route? They don't want to worry about anything. They've got, a super yacht, and they want, somebody else to do all the provisioning. They want everything taken care of. Can you do that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually, what I just described, all those services, that's included in the package and in the fee. Then we've got a lot of optional services as well. So that's yacht care. So if you're out and you want to leave your boat for a few weeks, we'll take care of it. We can arrange for your travel. We've got a crew pool, obviously, of professional sailors up to but deckhands, people who help you across the ocean. But the interesting thing, I think, is that we're also able to connect with the professional guys in the industry that actually could teach you a bit on several parts of a crossing. We've got the logistics involved, like I just mentioned, the charter and the supplies. So if you want to be supplied at arrivals, we can take care of it. One thing we haven't touched yet is, and that's how this works, is once you arrive in a certain destination, let's take the Caribbean, you're off for quite a long time. So in the Caribbean, we take 10 weeks, you're on your own and can do your own cruising. So it's not that we tend to go around the world in 30 months as a flotilla, because I think I wouldn't like it, and I think a lot of people feel the same. But we will go for the longer parts, the longer legs. We will go en group with all those services supplied for, and at arrivals we've got things arranged for, and then you're off for 10 weeks. If you choose to go with another 2 or 3 boats for another route within those 10 weeks, be my guest. And that again is connected to the just mentioned weather systems. So for instance, in the Caribbean, it's about 10 to 12 weeks. But in Galapagos, we need to leave again in April. It's only 2.5 to 3 weeks. And that's how we sort of manage it around the world.
Well, and it was like you were saying earlier as well, the fact that, you know, a lot of the people that you spoke to, when they did around the world, there were places that they would have liked to have stayed longer and explored and seen things. So at least this way, with this 30 months, you're allowing people the chance, or giving people the chance to actually see the environment in the different places and do their own thing and explore further, which is what this is really all about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
well,
it's a helping hand. It's a helping hand to I think a lot of people who have the dream, but might be either a bit insecure or like the social component, which I think is important as well. We supply for the departure parties, and I could imagine if I'm a keen sailor myself, if I would do this, I would like it to have a few people around me that can guide this a little bit. Although I'm free and on my own, I've got the services I need to make this a safe and sound trip.
Well, I think, you know what, you don't even necessarily have to be in the maritime industry at all, or into sailing or anything like that. I don't think that there is a single person over the age of 45 that has said one day at their job, I would like to cash this all in and sail around the world.
Exactly.
You know, so you actually hit that right on the head and said, you know what, even if you're coming out of that New York office building in the penthouse and you decide that you want to go sailing and you've never set foot on a boat, we can make that dream happen for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you're fulfilling dreams, essentially.
Yeah, essentially we do. Yeah. I hope to think that we are. Yeah.
A little bit of a Santa Claus.
Santa Claus.
No, yeah. But no, it sounds absolutely amazing. And you guys have a website that has absolutely everything on it. Any of the details that you would be looking for is up here. I will post that when this interview is over. And as well, they can contact you with any questions that they may have in regards to it. Have you had people sign up so far?
Well, we're in, yes, we have one sort of really serious. We're still working on quite a few partnerships. We just signed up with North Sails, and they will also further promote this in their channels. So I expect a bit more feedback from that. But in general, we're discussing, so we've got 2 slots at the moment, 2020, which is quite quick. And we realize that, but we'll just see how where it takes us, where time takes us. We need to make a decision in May, and we've got a slot in 21 as well. So we'll see what fills up. At the moment, we're talking to about 20 yachts, either interested in 20 or in 21, and it's a bit evenly spread. As well as the length, it's at the moment we're talking between 50 feet and 110 feet of boats. That's the range, and again, it's a discussion and a request for information, and we'll see where that if that ends up with signing up, and when, if that's 2020 or if that's 2021. But both are open, and we actually hope to. What we need a critical mass of, depending the routing they take, but we need a critical mass of anywhere between, let's say, 16 and 22 boats.
Okay.
So that's not a whole lot. If you look at other rallies, I think ARC has a yearly amount of yachts that go up. I mean, obviously the emphasis is on crossing the ocean, about 250, 260 yachts. And then another 45 go on the World Arc. Complete different model, but still it indicates that quite a lot of boats are doing that. And I think for that matter, the yachting market is big enough to hopefully to make this happen as well. And we hope to start off in due time on a yearly basis.
Well, what's the minimum amount of boats before you take off with this?
So that's depending slightly on the route. So that's probably anywhere between 16 and 22.
And that's the minimum. What is the maximum then?
We kept it at 30.
Okay.
We want to keep it. We want to keep it a small group and an exclusive group. And our span of control, especially in the first, let's say, 2 editions, we need to be sure that we've got this right. So we want to cap it at 30 maximum.
And do you think in the future, if you get that 30, do you think in the future, once you sort of make sure that it's a good model, that you might be able to increase?
Yeah, we might be. Yeah, absolutely. And so in both in the frequency, let's say yearly, that will be ideal. Also for our staff members, it will be ideal because we can make it way more efficient if we have 2 or 3 rallies at the time.
Yeah.
Running around. Especially with I just mentioned with the 10 weeks in between, we can make it an efficient exercise. And the amount of boats we might scale up to, if feasible, we might scale up to 40 or 45.
Wow, that's just the concept is actually pretty amazing. It's like a mini boat show on traveling together on the sea.
Well, which makes sense, right? I mean, I try to. I mean, you've seen on the website a few brands that are involved.
Yeah.
I try to make this inclusive for the yachting industry, but also for the major yachting brands, for the manufacturers, for the sailmakers, to make this a platform where what we can all sort of use, hence, for instance, North Sails. It makes sense for the whole of the industry to have yachts sailing and to get them out on the water, and that's what is provided this way. And it's a unique once-in-a-lifetime experience, and it's actually a good reason to buy a boat. Yeah. So if you sort of connect that to manufacturing a boat or manufacturing a sail, it makes sense that you want to sell boats. You might as well sell the experience with it, and so those two connected, I think is a good purpose to sell as well to an owner, because that's at the end of the day, if you have a 50, 60, 70 foot boat, that's what you can do with your boat, and that's what actually maybe you should do with your boat.
Well, and I mean, in the last few years, there was an issue about the fact that, less and less people were getting into sailing and more were going into motor yachts. So something like this, in conjunction with the sailing community, could actually bring sailing back to the stage where people are really interested, because they don't have to be expert sailors and they can learn as they go, because there is expert sailors with them. So, after 30 months of being on that, you're going to come off knowing pretty well what you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, and that brings us maybe back to the start of this story. So this guy I was in discussion with a maritime safety training, with some preparations on, and he has to have a certain level of being able to sail it, obviously. But we can provide that service to him to make his dream reality. So. He's probably one of the guys signing up for the next edition. He's got no time this year, but for the 21 edition, he's on board. And it's interesting to see how a story like that evolves from just a conversation on the terrace to where we are now. And we were all working hard to make it actually happen.
Well, do you know what I think? Most great ideas come from those conversations, having a beer on the terrace. It's just whether or not the person that has that conversation actually has the fortitude to go back and make it a reality.
That's
and
true.
Thankfully you did.
That's true. I mean, it of course it takes a lot of time and a lot of conversations, and it doesn't go by itself. But we've got a good solid team. We've got it all worked out. We thought about this well, and a year long. And again, with the professional network we are connected to, our background of the past decades, I think we're in a good position.
Well, yeah, I mean, taking a look, I encourage everybody to go to the website, because taking a look at the four gentlemen that are involved and the background that is part of who they are, I mean, the experience is just phenomenal, and there's no way you can go wrong when you've got a team that is that experienced backing you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good to hear.
No, it's amazing. Well, I think that you have found your niche in life in being the dream giver of every person over the age of 40 that has ever wanted to walk away from their office job and sail the high seas. And now you're giving them that opportunity. So I wish you the best of luck, and I thank you so much for taking your time. That is the World Yacht Rally, and it is an ongoing thing. So it's not just once. It will. There may possibly be a chance for you in 2020, definitely 2021, and who knows, if everything goes well, every year, maybe twice a year from then on.
Exactly.
Wonderful, Stef. I thank you ever so much for your time, and keep in touch and let us know how things are going. And if you do indeed get it off for this 2021 coming up, we'd love to see the start of it.
Definitely. I'll keep you posted on it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. This has been Ria for Yachting International Radio.